Hello everyone and welcome for another video of Love and Wargames. For this video I am joined by a very special guest today with VonKobra here, and he's coming to us straight from Wisconsin to share his wisdom on the Sultanate, because it is a faction I don't know very much and he does. So he's coming to help us see better how they play and what is new in this new OrBat. How are you, VonKobra?
Good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad I can help a little bit. A lot of people like the Sultanate, and a lot of people are confused about the Sultanate, and I'm hoping to be here to help with both of those.
Yes, indeed, it is one of the more complex faction in the game. There are a lot of tricks, a lot of, especially with the portals. And to be fair, like many players in our gaming circle, decided to forget the portals altogether because it was, according to them, too complex. So we hope to shed a little bit of light on this. So if you do play Sultanate or plan on playing Sultanate, you will be able to know how to play them. We will check this OrBat like from the beginning, and we will start with the special rules of the Sultanate. First thing, and something that we've already seen on other OrBats, is the agile special rules, which is actually something that is very common for the Sultanate, and it allows the units that has this rule to make turns during the drift. So you don't have to make the drift all the way forward, but you can already start to go on the side. And this is something that is quite important on the Sultanate because they have it everywhere. What do you think, VonKobra? Is it really part of their DNA, or it's just a little bonus cherry on the top?
So, one of the points of conversation I've made with many people is that whereas the Alliance Levants are probably the fastest ships in the game, the Sultanate are easily the most agile. They can turn on a dime, they can get wherever they want, whenever they want, and they can do it fast. Agile is important in that, but as we're going to see from some of their other special rules, it's not as important as it would be in another faction.
Mhm. Would you say, before we start, that the Sultanate is more agile than factions with paddle wheels, such as the Chinese or the Union?
I think so. I obviously a faction that has paddle wheels, when it decides to use contra rotation, will turn faster. However, contra rotation removes your drift and reduces your speed.
Yes, it does.
So they can turn on a dime, but they can't get anywhere when they can turn on a dime. Every one of the Sultanate's movement tricks doesn't reduce their speed and might increase their speed. Just to preview the other two rules that are going to be important, they have a lot of ships with power slide, which lets them move left and right instead of drifting normally. And they have a lot of ships that get bonus speed when they go in a straight line. Power slide plus that bonus speed is a big deal, because the power slide doesn't count as turning.
Indeed. So then you can power slide on the side and then still get this bonus speed if you go straight.
Yep.
Okay, so that is indeed very, very powerful. So very agile faction, and this is really part of their core identity. We will have a look now at the next rule, which is Gun Runner. It is relatively new, like they didn't have it in the very beginning, and apparently it's very, very efficient. You will tell us in a second. I will read it for the people that listen to this video on audio. And it says that a model that moved at least 7 inches during its activation or has been placed by a mirage generator that we will talk about in a minute gains this. And then a single attack that you make with a gunnery quality gets +1 dice per battle ready model. So it is kind of like the new Pack Hunter, but it combines with Pack Hunter. And plus, if you do this, you gain +2 speed, again, provided that you make no turn. So that sounds powerful on the paper. It does sound to help more like the squadrons of smaller ships, but with a lot of them. What can you tell us about Gunrunner? It sounds very strong from the beginning.
Yeah. So this is actually combining a couple of rules, and the first thing I'll note is that the Sultanate used to have linear dash. So that last line, +2 speed if you make no turns, that's linear dash. So any ship that used to have linear dash now has Gunrunner. Um, Moving at least 7 inches isn't hard with Sultanate. the Mirage Generator is an addition in this OrBat, which I have not tested out. I'm not exactly sure what the ramifications are, but it seems like it'll be a very powerful way to, if you've got a ship with Mirage generators or a unit with full Mirage generators, for them to stay closer to the position they want to be in, and still get the gunrunner benefit, which is a big deal too. Honestly, the Sultanate want to be moving. They want to be constantly engaging. This is one of the things about the Sultanate. They are the fastest faction and some of the lowest armor faction. So you generally, the ideal situation for the Sultanate in almost all cases is to be in a position where they are shooting from next to a piece of terrain that would otherwise obscure them and will obscure them from what they're shooting at after it drifts.
Okay, okay, I see. Okay, so you really need to be subtle in where you go, but okay, you can take into consideration the drift of your opponent to try to get in cover. And since you're so agile, you can go wherever you want. Okay,
Yep.
plus you are very fast but very fragile. Starts to sound more and more like elves, but okay, I see a little bit like how it works. And yeah, it sounds a lot of fun to do. Would you say that it's harder for a beginner to start with a Sultanate? Like if it is their first faction in the game, for example?
I've heard a lot of a lot of my friends that I play with, just quite frankly say that the Sultanate is the highest skill floor of any faction. I find that hard to disagree with. Now that being said, I personally find the Enlightened very confusing, but I think it is definitely a very, very, very high skill faction. And I make this comparison for any of the people out there who've played the cooperative board game Pandemic. There's a role in there called the Dispatcher. And the Dispatcher's special power is they can use their own actions to move other players. I don't lose Pandemic if I play Dispatcher. So if you like movement shenanigans, if you like being in control of the battlefield, if you like having, they basically have absolute control of where they are, which is powerful if you know how to utilize it and useless if you don't.
Okay, I see very much how it is. And yeah, it does sound like the highest skillful or as you said very well. The Covenant does have some defensive tricks, like quite a few of them actually. And so even if you are a newer player and you don't make the full use of their capacities, as long as you remember the rules, even if you don't apply them as best as you can, you will still enjoy them. With the Sultanate, it sounds like a lot more that you actually need to use it if you want to survive. Okay. They also have heavy firepower, as most factions, like as every faction. We remind that now you use heavy firepower before you declare your initial target, so you can switch target if it is cancelled. No, nothing specific here. Another something specific for the Sultanate though is the Ikili hull, which is basically the catamaran design that many Sultanate ships can get, especially when you fuse two Mass 2 cruisers to make one Mass 3 catamaran ship. And we'll see what it means. Usually it means they're a little bit tougher. They do gain +3 speed, provided that they make no turn. So this is probably what you were already talking about. And something that is quite interesting from what I read is that when you make a jury-rigged repair, which is at the end of the turn when you choose to kind of like risk some hull points to remove a disorder or a critical, you count hits and heavy hits as exploding hits, which means when you make exploding hits, you don't lose the hull points. So you go from one chance out of 6 of not losing a hull point, which is you cannot count on this, to basically one chance out of 2. And that makes them reliable at removing critical or disorders. The big question I have is, do they usually want so badly to remove their disorder or their criticals, or is it just a little cherry on top that is not that important for their gameplay?
So the important things to remember here is at max disorder, you don't get special operations. No special operations means no portals, no mirages. Also, max disorder starts to affect your generators. Generator shutdown is bad. There's lots of, and because of agile and power slide, they really don't want to have navigation lock either. So removing disorder and critical effects is important for them. These ships are big investments. We're going to see that the cheap one is, I think it's 165 points in this update, but don't quote me on that yet.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
160, but yeah, the cheapest is at
being able to
160, and
remove
that's a lot.
those is important. The other thing to note is equally hull and gunrunner, no ship shares them. So no, you cannot go plus 5 inches for moving in a straight line.
That would be convenient. Having a Ikili Hull Gunrunner and Pack Hunter, that would start to be a bit much. Okay. Then we have Maritime Patrol as a rule, which is something that we know already. It means that when there is at least one SRS token next to your target, or when you are within 10 inches, you ignore the submerged position threat. So it means you can shoot with aerial weapons, for example, and it means the enemy doesn't count as being obscured. So that is good, but nothing special here. And we go to yet another special rule for the Sultanate, and one that I know has caused a lot of frustration back in the days when we were playing with or against the Suleiman fleet carrier, and that is Auricalcite, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, construction. This means that battle-ready models only, so you don't get this if you're crippled, they never suffer catastrophic explosion if you get twice the citadel. Instead, you just get a single critical damage result. Yeah, the mass one ships are still are not automatically destroyed if their citadel is exceeded by an attack. So all in all, that sounds like very powerful things. You don't lose automatically your mass one ships, which is usually their big weaknesses, especially from air attacks. And then again, you can never get a catastrophic explosion, which is usually like what you try to aim to really when you really focus firepower on a ship. That sounds very strong. Is it as strong as it sounds?
It is. It is exactly as strong as it sounds, which is ridiculously powerful. Um, with the mitigating factor being the Sultanate's armor value is lower than the average. Its hull value is lower than the average. So, um, it's very powerful. It basically means, whereas combining attacks against other factions is often an efficiency advantage because the bonus 2 damage from catastrophic explosion makes up for basically everything else. Um, on the Sultanate, combining attacks is relatively worthless. You want to combine as few attacks as you can to get up to that Citadel value and not above.
Mhm. Okay, well, thanks. Good tip if you play against the Sultanate. Remember, don't combine all your attacks. Try to kill them with 1,000 little cuts. Okay. And plus, what do you think of the new thing from this OrBat, like from the latest version of the OrBat, which is that the Mass 1 models are not automatically destroyed if you breach their Citadel? What do you think of this?
So this affects one model. Um, there's one mass one that got this. It is a tough little ship. It also needed it. Um, the the order ships are very very expensive. They need to be very very expensive. And I believe in this OrBat 58 point mass one. Yeah, that rule is utterly necessary.
Yeah, either you make them with an extremely high Citadel value, either you had to have this rule indeed, because then you start to be in the point where it just feels bad if you lose your mess one ship, like from a couple aircrafts, SLS token attacking you. Absolutely. And yeah, they're still very, very good ship. Then we go to power slide. We already talked a little bit about this, so we'll not go back on this, but it's basically you can make your drift either on the left or on the right, port or starboard. Let's use the correct terms.
Or
And
anywhere in between.
yeah. And anywhere in between? Ah, yes, indeed, you
Up
can. Oh, okay.
up to 90 degrees. So basically the entire 180-degree arc in front of
Hmm.
your ship, you can drift in a straight
Oh my
line in
God.
any of those
Okay.
directions.
That's not how we played it so far. We had a couple Sultan players. We used it either you go straight, either you go literally left or right. But no, you can do a little bit diagonal. Okay, so it's oh, that's really agile. Oh my God. I start to see how. Oh my God. Yeah, you can really go where you want with this. Indeed. Okay, that is really, really good. Okay. Then we go to a new rule that all the OrBats have now. It's a vulnerable stern, and this is usually for ships that have a lot of armor and weapons on the front and a lot less on the rear. And it means that when you shoot in the aft fire arc of this model, where basically you shoot them from behind, then your attacks gain devastating quality. So it is a nerf for the ships that have this. It is not a rule that you want to have, but yeah, if you start to have devastating on the Sultanate ships, you will start to do a lot of damage, even though they can have this auricalcite construction, which means that even if you double the citadel because you have devastating and you roll really hot, you will never do a catastrophic explosion. What do you think of this? Is it a little bit overkill on the Sultanate, which were already a little bit fragile, or is it okay because you're so agile that you will almost never show your aft to the enemy?
Yeah, if my opponent gets uh invulnerable stern against the Sultanate, I deserve everything they can do. Now, I do think this rule is a lot, um, but we'll see how it plays out. I have a suspicion that this rule is going to stay but get a little bit weaker and maybe applied to some more models in the future, but I'm not sure. I think devastating's a lot. Um, I think the automatic nav lock is definitely worthwhile. It's actually one of the things I like about this rule is because to me, if you get behind someone and start shooting them from the rear, now you're in essentially and mixing terms here because this is a ship game, so drifting means a totally different thing. But in now you are drifting behind them in the car sense. It should be pretty easy to follow them and not let them get back towards you. And because of the way activations work in this game, that wasn't really possible before. Basically, any ship could turn far enough to get you in their side firing arcs and shoot back. The navigation lock, I think, is really valuable and really rewards someone for having better play.
Indeed, it does, or just having ships that appear in the rear of your enemy. That can also be.
That that too. That too.
Do you think it having vulnerable sterns across the orbits will actually boost the Sultanate because you're so agile that you can easily you go to the rear of your enemy and stay there and give them navigation locks so they cannot start to turn back, and you are agile enough so you just stay in this aft arc and they can not do much to Swift. Is it actually a boost to the Sultanate, this vulnerable stern?
I think against the Canadians especially, yes. Um, but overall, it's not a very common thing to have. It does boost the Sultanate a little bit to have it on the Orbats. I think it does less damage to them than it causes them to do out, just because they are so agile.
Indeed, I share this opinion as well. Then we have a new wish rule, which is something we've seen in the Covenant, which is Wave Lurker. We will not talk too much about it because it's just a little teaser of a new subfaction of the Sultanate that will arrive later, which are the Greeks. And we'll talk about it later when we see the Greek ship that has it. Then we will go swiftly over the battle fleets. There is, as far as I know, nothing very special about the Sultanate's battle fleets. There is no very unique battle fleet bonus. One thing that we need to say is the change to strategic reserves, which means that either every ship in the battle fleets are held in reserve or none of them. So you don't have to put them in reserve with this. But if you do, you need to put every ship of the battle fleet in reserve. It's been clarified, and that is good. We'll
So
go, yeah,
there is one special thing to go over right here, which is easy to miss. The generic Sultanate battle fleet cannot have order models. This is unusual because most factions' generic battle fleets can mix everything they have. You cannot mix order with anything else, which is important for several reasons that we will get to.
indeed, very good to point it out. So we have this generic battle fleet, nothing special except this. We have a Turkish front line with the Anatolia or the Hurrem, which are both available right now. Some mercenaries, including the Sultanate mercenaries, will go over very soon. Then we have the Turkish support battle fleet with the infamous Suleiman or the very recently released Topkapi. Again, you have everything that you need here. Then we have this that should come relatively soon, we hope, which are the Egyptians with the Abydos, which is a huge fortress that we'll see. It is already in the OrBat. And you can have the Manjet, which I don't believe is in the OrBat already. It's a little teaser on what is
No,
coming.
the Manjet is in the OrBat.
Oh, it is.
This is one that gains the battle fleet trait. This is a unit.
Ah, okay, that's why I missed it in the flagship. Okay, okay, well, that's interesting. A little bit like the Pride from the Crown. Very interesting indeed. Okay. And then we have the Crimson League, which is a mercenary battle fleet that will come eventually, and that mixes a little bit of the aerial forces of the Sultanate, like the skimming forces of the Sultanate, as well as some enlightened automatas. And that sounds like a very, very interesting mix. And it does sound like it does help a little bit alleviate some of the weaknesses of the Sultanate because you don't lose much as far as I can see when you get the Crimson League, but you gain luminiferous defenses and an internal entropic generator, which basically boosts your armor a little bit, gives you some sort of a shield generator, and then you get a defense roll against many, many attacks. So that sounds like a really strong boost. What do you think of the Crimson League?
It's going to be interesting. The Lyceum class is a big flying or skimming like saucer palace from old art I've seen of it. Um, don't know what it's going to look like now, but this is an interesting mercenary battle fleet.
Yeah, it does sound like very interesting. It does sound like it has a lot of theme of like a character. Like you will recognize a Crimson Link battle fleet from far away, and it just sounds cool to be able to mix forces from two different factions, Sultanate and Covenant, inside a single mercenary fleet that you can then plug to whichever you play, Prussians or Union or whichever. So you can have a lot of variety here, and yep, lots of conversion and painting scheme opportunities. And then we arrive to the very interesting part of the Sultanate, which is the order. And indeed, if you want to play some order ships, you have to have this order frontline battle fleet led by the Heritage, which is like there is one box that you can buy with this, and then you can put some surface unit between one and you can go up to four surface units. And as far as I can tell, there is only one type of surface order unit, which is the Carolus. So you really want.
There's a new one previewed in this OrBat.
Ah, okay, I missed it. I missed it. Okay, and okay, we'll have a look when we arrive there, and then we, of course, have the aerial units of the Order, which is this giant robot, and we are all very excited to see what it will look like because it sounds awesome. Sum up. It does get strategic reserve, and this is the question that I want to ask, because usually the weapons of the Order are quite long range. Do you usually want to play them like turn one on the table to make the most of this long range firepower, or do you want them in strategic reserves because they usually have quite a good fray value?
Well, I think you just answered the question there, which is both. They do have good fray values. They are they actually have a bonus to um, supporting assaults universally, and it's really a mixed thing. The reason they have strategic reserves is they this is where the portal technology comes from for the whole of the Sultanate. And without strategic reserve, you could not consistently have them enter through portals, which seemed like a strange thing.
Okay, so you really want your order to actually come from strategic reserves, but not specifically from the side of the table, but also from a portal.
It's really both. Both ways of using them are very valuable for different reasons.
But it sounds very thematic to have just an order battle fleet coming out of a portal. Sounds too cool to pass up. We have a little spoiler of what awaits humanity if the order wins, by the way.
No, no,
And
no, 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 no. That's the backup plan if the order's losing.
okay, right. And we go to the outfitting yards of the Sultanate, and there is especially a new weapon, which is the D cannon battery, which sounds, now that I think of it, even more like a Eldar weapon. And it has good stat lines already, this D cannon. And this distortion cannon can use something interesting as a valor effect. It loses the indirect quality, which is interesting, like you can shoot without line of sight. It loses this indirect quality, but it gains devastating instead, which is very good. And it also always ignores shield generators. That is quite strong, and it's yet another nerf to shield generators. What do you think of this weapon? We've seen this, and I will just spoil a little bit its damage stat lines while we can talk about what it does. It is piercing, and it's 8-4 at battle ready, at closing and long range. What do you think of this new weapon?
So this is a great weapon. This is a very dangerous weapon for the Sultanate to have because the Sultanate is faster than you, and if there's terrain they can hide behind, they can shoot you straight through it. So remember how I said the ideal position for the Sultanate is to just be poking out of cover in such a way that when you drift, they're going to have cover? Well, now they don't even need to do that. Now they can hide behind the biggest piece of terrain and power slide left and right each turn and fire indirectly at you and not care. And then when you do make it to them, they can turn off the indirect and make it devastating. The stat line is great. It has a better lead value and the same support value as the particle beamers at medium and at closing and long. Um, it, this is dangerous. Now, the thing to remember about indirect is indirect automatically imposes obscured on any attack. So
So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's still very, very strong. And indeed, you might start to think that if your opponent has a lot of these distortion cannons, it might be hard to go and find them out, except if you have things such as SRS tokens that don't care either about the line of sight. Yeah, it might start to be difficult to go and pick them up. They have these Ferric Skiff Escort, which is interesting. Like the little special rule that they have is that they are removed if you would suffer a catastrophic explosion, but but you don't, yeah, because you have Oracle Seed construction. Otherwise, it's just a good-looking little escort, nothing extremely special.
hold on. There is one thing to note about the Ferric escorts.
Yes.
And this is actually a note kind of about the Sultanate as a whole,
Hmm.
but also about the game as a whole. Everybody, there are secret rules in the game that you don't know. They're in the OrBats, and they're never written down. The secret rule for Ferric escort skiffs is that everyone can take them. So, whereas most factions are fairly limited to taking escorts with flagships or particularly powerful units, the Sultanate's frigates can take 2 escorts with them.
That sounds strong, especially since, like, yeah, escorts do help you to intercept torpedoes and stuff, but they also boost your fray when you try to board, or they boost your point blank firepower. That sounds powerful. If we switch to the generators, there is one thing that got a boost, and that sounds like it could be very valuable for the Sultanate. It's an atomic generator. If you want to be even more insane about your turns, you could get this. You get more speed and more turn limit. But again, like, you're so agile already, do you really need this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, atomic generator getting a boost is helpful for a lot of other factions. I don't think the Sultanate's taking it,
Yeah.
especially since we will get to a significantly better movement option that they have.
Yeah, well, we will go there very fast. The Fury, it's still good. Uh, that didn't change. The magnetic generator got a big boost. Now it does a lot of things. Now it still counts heavy hits as single hits when you are targeted by enemy SRS, but also when you're targeted by aerial qualities. And we'll see that some of the Sultanate ships have also bonuses against aerial attacks already that can really start to pile up, and your enemy will not know where to shoot. You also can get something very interesting. It's kind of like a flag barrage when you point at a enemy or friendly unit within 10 inches, and then you make a flag barrage action where you get as many dices as the number of SRS in base contact with this unit. And you also, if you target an aerial unit with this kind of flag barrage, this aerial unit gets a disorder. So that is a lot. Were the SRS tokens a little bit one of the weaknesses of the Sultanate before, and how much does this boost to magnetic boost the Sultanate?
Well, SRS tokens weren't a weakness of the Sultanate. We'll get to the Suleiman, but they've had the best carrier in the game from the moment it released. It has gone up and up and up and up in points every time an OrBat has come out. I still think it's probably the best carrier in the game. Sorry, second best. That's a different conversation. Um, uh, Free Fortunes of War on your carrier is bonkers. You lucky Union players and your Enterprise. Uh,
It is a good carrier, the Enterprise. No questions here. Is it as good as the Suleiman? It is a debate you can have. But yeah, those are two very good ships. I'm mostly a Commonwealth player so far, and I look at my Mojaiski and I'm like, why?
so the Sultanate has always had the highest capacity for SRS tokens. They didn't have a lot of defenses against SRS tokens. It's one of the things where there's an interesting balancing point where I think a lot of this is good. Magnetic generators getting more powerful is good. It's very good for the Sultanate. They're going to be able to benefit from this a lot, and we will get to your discussion about D-cannon batteries and hiding behind terrain and countering that with SRS soon.
Indeed. Now that we've seen the magnetic generator, one of the generators that is unique to the Sultanate is the Mirage generator. And I will read it so for the people that don't have the picture in front of them. Unless the attacker is at point blank, uh, a ship with a Mirage generator is always obscured to attacks with gunnery. So it kind of like makes it as if your mass 2 or 3 was a mass 1 in this regard. And on top of that, if you have this generator, during your special operation, so before you move, the entire unit may be removed from play and replaced at a new point within 7 inches of its original position. And each model must then be placed with the same facing as when they were removed. So you cannot do something completely crazy as teleporting and then going backwards, etc. Not that much, but it's still something very good. It is basically a teleport action, so you gain even more maneuverability. Have you played with the Mirage, and what do you think of this?
Mirage generators are a key part to the Sultanate. This is why you're never ever taking an atomic generator. Because you can just pick up your whole unit and place it completely within 7 inches. Understand that there's been some changes about referring to models versus referring to units. This refers to the unit. So it is saying you pick up all the models and then you're going to have to place them all completely within 7 inches of the unit, which makes it possible that one of the models will not be completely within 7 inches of its original position, as long as it is completely within 7 inches of the unit.
Okay, so you can actually, yeah, the entire unit. Okay, so you can gain a little bit more distance from this.
It's not necessarily a little bit more, but let's say you have 3 cruisers lined up
Mm-hmm.
left, right, and then you Mirage generator and you put all 3 of them as far as you can from the ship that was already on one side, further out that way. The
Okay.
ship that was originally all the way on the other side is in some ways moving further. Now, just so we're clear, Mirage Generator has gotten significantly weakened in this latest update. It used to say within, not completely within. It was only 5 inches, but within meant you could go nose to tail 5
Okay.
inches,
Indeed.
which for a ship like the Anatolia was, I think I calculated it out to about 9 inches of movement.
Yeah, that does sound indeed like this.
A lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
I just had an Anatolia in my hands, like some like some hours ago, and yeah, you would gain a lot of movement out of this. Indeed.
Yep.
Okay, so
So they
this has been
reduced it
nerfed.
to
Yeah,
completely within
it's normal to do
and
this.
altered the rules so that it makes sense with unit-based choices instead of model-based
Mhm.
choices.
Okay, but still a very good part of the Sultanate strategy, and being obscured against gunnery is always good to take, especially
And
when you're
still not
fragile.
a turn.
Mhm.
Still not a turn.
And okay, yeah, right. So you can still just be. Oh, you can still move. Yeah, you can still move after. So you teleport 7 inches and then you go forward like however fast you want. Yeah, you can be so fast with that. Oh my god.
Yep.
Yeah,
Teleport 7 inches, drift sideways, and then move forward in a straight line and get bonus movement for it.
it sounds it sounds so strong. Okay. Then you get the portal generator, which is the complex part of the Sultanate. As you can see, it's a big block of text. I will first read it and try to explain it, and then you will tell us all the details about this. Just something to know, like, but yeah, they will say that there are specific tokens that you can use for this, and yeah, this is, from what I see, a very big part of what makes the Sultanate so strong when you start to know how to play and think with portals. So the portal is a generator, so you need to have this specific generator, and if you do, this unit may place a 50 mm portal token within 5 inches of itself. So far, so good. Each additional portal generator in the unit increases the distance that each portal token may be deployed by +10, with a maximum range of 25 inches. So one portal 5 inches, two portals 15 inches, and if you have three portals or more, 25 inches. And then you can port a single token. If there are three or more models with portal generators in this unit, then you may instead place two portal tokens within 5 inches, which is, from what I get, usually good when there are already portals around the map and you want to do a lot of different actions with those and enjoy the portals from other units. Then, during the round, any friendly unit making an attack with the bomb or broadside quality and that has a portal token within 4 inches of that unit may measure the range of the attack as though being made from any other portal. So basically, you shoot inside a portal and it goes out from another portal. The attacking unit still requires line of sight to the initial target. That is a big thing. However, the weapon must replace their listed fire arc with a 360-degree fire arc if it is used with a portal. That is good. Escort tokens cannot provide a benefit to the attack. All right. Furthermore, during the reserve step of the round, and that is the second big part of the rule, so during the reserve step of the round, at the end, when a friendly Mass 2 or Mass 1 unit becomes available from reserve, it may be deployed in base contact with any portal token rather than using other deployment options. Each model in the reserve unit must be deployed in base contact, so all of them, and uh, and that's what you need to do. Remove portal tokens once a reserve unit has been deployed using it, or an attack using the bomb or broadside quality has been made from it. And finally, remove all the remaining portal tokens at the start of the maintenance steps, so all the way at the end of the turn. So that is a lot to consider. So you can put portals. There are different ways to put portals left and right. You can shoot through portals. You can get reserve coming from portals, and they all disappear at the end of the turn. So there is no stacking them all the time and then using all of them like a turn 3 or something. That is a lot to digest. Can you tell us how it actually plays on the table?
Okay, so how it actually plays on the table. Let's go through this in a couple of steps. The easiest thing is actually reserves. Reserves is a lot easier. You take a strategic reserve fleet, you make that strategic reserve fleet hit like a truck up close, and then you have some portal generating models in your main fleet. Now you are in the position where you can drop portals from a long ways away and have units come into your opponent's force directly in the middle. It makes attacking at point blank and doing full double broadsides very, very easy. Again, this is one of those setups where using portals for reserves, you can launch a full size frigate unit out of a portal, drive them because of the high agility, directly between two opposing cruisers or even between two opposing flagships, hit them both with full combined broadside attacks, and decide which of the two units you are going to shoot with the guns on the frigates, which also get the gunrunner bonus.
That sounds like a lot. Okay, it takes a lot to set up because you need to put portals and have it in reserve and stuff, but that sounds like something that will put a lot of hurt on the opponent, and there are not that many ways to stop it. Like you see the portal and you know you're gonna get it.
Yep, and there's I consider that one there's basically no way to stop it. It's going to be hurty. It is the, skipping turns 1 and 2, you get it at the end of turn 2, but I don't think it's that hard to set up. You need one unit capable of placing portals at a significant range. So generally you'll do that. We'll talk about that in the units, but there are good units to choose. And then what you do is you set up with a flagship that can come in from reserves on the side of the map, and this frigate unit or cruiser unit that can come in through the portal. It's a pretty simple setup, and there's no way to remove portals from the board, except one that I realized this morning, which is a little weird in its own way. Portals technically do not take up space. They are not obstacles. You cannot collide with them. And therefore, if you have a ship that is wider than 50 millimeters, you can park it
That
on the
is,
location with a portal, and the portal can't be used for reserves anymore.
yeah, I can put my my Enterprise or my Victory on it, and then no way to be in base contact.
Yep.
That sounds legal actually. Like I see a portal, just drive through it. Yeah, that sounds like there should be a way to just put your ship there anyway, and it causes catastrophic explosions of both ships. That sounds fun, but okay, that does sound like a way to stop it. But otherwise, no other ways to stop ships coming from reserve out of it. Very good way to play with strategic reserves, and it is just going to be like a key part of the Sultanate strategy. You can also, though, shoot with it. And what do
Yep.
you think of shooting
So
through it?
shooting is more complicated. And I'm going to start with just a couple of the points of um, clarity involving the rule. One, the portal that you're shooting into, so the portal that's within 4 inches of the ship,
Hmm.
you don't have to have firing arc to it. You can shoot 4 weapons into a portal that's 4 inches behind you. Because it doesn't say anything about line of sight, it just says within. Basically, the portal is sucking up the ammo as you fire it. You
That
do
sounds
not
cool.
need to be able to see either the portal you're shooting into or out of. You only need to be able to see the target.
Mhm. Okay, so that is a little bit more complex indeed to trigger, but that sounds powerful, especially with broadsides, which is the new thing that you can do, and you might want to do that. And of course, there are some specific weapons that are made to go through portals, like all these flechettes that we'll see in a short second. And well, maybe we can already have a look. If I switch back to those weapons with the bomb quality, and
One
they're,
note, one
yeah.
note about the broadside weapons that's important.
Hmm.
It forces you to change your firing arc to 360. Broadsides are always the aft and starboard firing type. When it changes to 360, you go from 2 weapons to 1. So you don't get to fire, let's say with a cruiser unit, 6 broadsides combined at something. You get to fire 3.
That would be too strong, wouldn't it? That
That
would
would
be,
be too much.
yeah, that does sound like too much. Okay, there are two weapons that can go with the bomb keyword. The classic old one that we've seen before with the Merima and the Nemrut, which is the Auricalcite Fléchette launcher, which is fusillade, blast, and bomb, so it can go through the portal at 12.9. So that is that is a lot, especially with blast. You can just obliterate a squadron with this. And there is the latest one, which is from the Retage, if I'm not mistaken, and it is the Helioblast, which is no support value, just 18 dices straight, but I think that's the highest lead value I've ever seen, with Blast, again, Harzadus, and Arc. Wow, what can you tell us about both these weapons? Because they sound very powerful at point blank, but if you can start to use them with portals, they sound, I will not say broken, but having a blast shot so far away with something like 20 dices each time, it sounds like a lot.
It is a lot. It's these are and that's the thing where I've said from the beginning that portals are worth it because the setup is worth it. Now, again, remember the way to use portal weapons is you need a portal, and for basically all the weapons we're talking about at point blank range to the opponent. Now, you can use broadsides at closing range. I don't see why you would, because oof.
Yeah,
Um
we see the stat bench
broadsides
here. It's
lose
like, eh.
even heavy broadsides lose so much at point blank range.
Mhm.
It just is not worth it. Um, or at closing range, it's just not worth it. So you need a portal within 10 inches of the ship you're firing at, and you need a portal within 4 inches of the ship that's firing. The way I've generally accomplished this is you have one unit dedicated to putting portals out at long range, and then often the ships that have portal weapons will have the ability to put out a portal for themselves. So that's generally how you're going to do it. You're going to drop one within 5 inches of the ship. It's one of the things that's interesting. If a ship can only drop a portal within 5 inches of itself, uh, it's going to use as the entry portal. You are self-limiting your own movement. You're actually taking away a lot of your speed, because you can't move forward as far, or you'll leave the range of your portal.
Okay, yeah, indeed, that's something I did not consider. But yeah, you're so agile that if you have in special operation to put a portal, you cannot just fly around and teleport and drift and etc. Indeed,
Mhm.
indeed, that is something true.
Um, getting blasts in place is important. If you're playing against Sultanate, try to maximize your coherency,
Yeah,
because when you've got two flagships that I can hit simultaneously, that's a
oh, yeah.
poor choice you have made, and I have done that to people before.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you two flagships together in Korean terrain, like yeah, don't do that. I was when I see blast like this, I always think of like a pack of frigates and this kind of thing. But yeah, if you start to pack cruisers with flagships and stuff, well, you at this point, don't you deserve to have it once done to you, so you remember, and next time you don't make the mistake. Okay, so very, very important part of the Sultanate playstyle, these portal generators. We'll talk again, like when we see some units. Okay, remember this is the unit that has a portal and that can trigger all of this. But yeah, we remember that the Fléchette and the Helioblast are very important parts of their playstyle.
And important to acknowledge the bomb quality and the fact that bomb quality means you cannot target aerial units, you cannot affect aerial units.
Mhm.
So even if an aerial unit is within range of a blast targeting a surface unit, it will not hit it.
Indeed, indeed, that is a very good point. So, fleet, if you go one day to a tournament with a fleet relying on this, and you go on a full aerial British fleet, you will not be happy about this. You also can get with the Sultanate the repulsion field generator, which gives you +3 SDV, never bad, and you can also move over any terrain or models as long as you finish your movement out of any terrain or enemy or allied units. There is a little boost of mobility, but if you can get a generator, maybe this is not the one you will choose, indeed, in the Sultanate. Then
I,
the,
I, I
yeah,
will say, of all the generators,
hmm
the repulsion field actually intrigues me a lot with Sultanate. I haven't taken it, but adding moving over terrain to your list of movement options seems like it could be really mean, especially with any of their closer range weapons like particle beamers.
okay. So you are fast enough that you can just stay behind an island, and then you're fast enough to just cross the island or the terrain and arrive at point blank. Indeed. That could be nice. And let's remember as well, and someone pointed out to me this, that if you get +3 SDV, it also boosts your defense against boarding. So that's always a good boost, not to forget. Then we have the shield generator, the pooled shield generator, that doesn't work as good as it used to be, especially since when you use a shield generator, you cannot count as being obscured, so that is a big nerf. And it does not combine like if you use a shield generator and you have an entropic generator, for example, if you're from the Crimson League, you can never go beyond 3 dice removed. So yeah, it is much weaker than it used to be. It doesn't work against bomb qualities, by the way, so if you are in a mirror match, it will not save you. And yeah, just some units have it internal, so there are some times when you will use it because it's just a boost because you would not have been obscured anyway. But yeah, it's not the king of generator as it used to be back in the days.
And so I will argue that it was never the king of generators. But for the Sultanate, it's actually still quite useful. Understanding that the interaction with Auracalcite construction is a big deal. With Auracalcite construction, your opponent wants to split their attacks into smaller groups.
Yes.
Shield generator, you get to reduce the dice off of every single one of those groups. So this is kind of the pair of defensive generators right here, the shield generator and the shroud generator. The shield generator is easily the best against divided attacks, and it still is. And the shroud generator is easily the best against big combined attacks. So the Sultanate gets more benefit from the shield generator than it would seem at first, because your opponent is, if they're taking Auracalcite construction into consideration, they're splitting their attacks more. And so you get to use shield generator more often and remove more dice.
Indeed, that is something that I did not take into consideration. But yeah, if your opponent does a lot of small attacks, you will get a lot of value out of it. Absolutely. And the Shroud Generator, as you said, is still very good when the enemy puts a single big attack on you. In this sense, it gets better than the shield. And yeah, both are good defensive tricks. And I would argue that I was biased with the shield generator because there used to be a time when it comboed so good with ablative armor from the Russians. At some point, I was just saying to my opponent, yeah, just don't throw the dice. You cannot do anything. And yeah, but for the Sultanate, indeed, when you get a lot of small attacks, that is a good boost. Then we have all the weapons of the Sultanate. Many of those we've talked about already. Many of those as well uh, we know from other factions. We talked about the D-cannon battery. Uh, most of them we will not talk about right now. We'll talk when we see the specific units. I think we've talked about mostly every single one of them, except maybe the Judgment Lance and the Twin Judgment Lances that are worth to point out before we go to the Heritage and the small Carolus ships. Just because the stat line is so interesting. It is like you can see the Twin Judgment Lances is 8/8 at all ranges, and that is something that just tells you something about the story behind the weapon. It's just so reliable as a technology that you just go straight and you cannot escape it. What can you tell us from the fire, like the efficiency of these weapons, the Judgment Lance and the Twin Judgment Lances?
So they are efficient for sure. However, since the order is severely limited in the numbers it can take, these are not as great as they appear. You can't add more models. You can't make them bigger. So the Judgment Lance maxes out at 20 dice. The Twin Judgment Lances maxes out at 16 dice. And they cannot be combined. So even though the destroyers for the order do now have the attached unit rule, they can't join and add 10 dice to the Twin Judgment Lances.
Yeah, because they're not sustained, indeed. There is no way to give them sustained?
Nope.
Okay, so yeah, they're indeed you cannot make one big massive attack, but still sounds like good units, like
There's
good
one
weapons.
other weapon
Yeah,
I would like to call out just because
yeah.
it is a very nice weapon
Is it the particle
for the
beamer?
Sultanate. Nope. Nope. So everyone knows the particle beamer. Particle beamers are super dangerous.
Yes.
Sustained is a big deal, and their high support values are a big deal.
Mhm.
No, the weirdly interesting weapon for the Sultanate is actually micro torpedo salvos.
Oh yeah, on the Temia frigates.
Yep, the Tamir
Oh yeah.
frigates have micro torpedo salvos, And the last trait they have is homing, which rerolls all the blanks. These are very dangerous little torpedoes. And 3 is a heck of a support value for a small profile weapon.
Indeed, I played especially with a Sultanate player in a 2v2, and I was so shocked at the firepower of these little Timir frigates. It was before they got gun runner even, and between the broadside and the gun batteries and these torpedoes, they just did a lot. And I'm not sure right now how much you can put in a single squadron of Timir frigates, but that probably can get to a lot of torpedoes in a
8.
single. 8. Oh my God. Okay, I thought it was 6. Okay, so yeah, that is going to start to be a lot. Okay.
And the other thing to note is, as good as particle beamers are, there's also baby particle beamers, etheric lances,
Yes.
and the Tamir frigates can take them too.
Ooh. Yeah, we can see where this is going. This sounds like very thematic if you start to play that as a Crimson League. Oh, sorry, the Crimson League to put a lot of of these Covenant weapons all in your battle fleet. But yeah, those are good stat lines indeed. And I will never not call the Etheric Lance something else than baby particle beamer thus far. Well, I offer that we start to have a look at ships actually, and starting with the flagships. And one thing that I'm very, very excited to see how it will look like. We will not spend too much time on ships that are not released yet, because this video has been going on for quite a while, but it was important because we needed to explain the portals and the Mirage and everything. But in order to make it short, let's skip quickly over the Abydos Hover Stronghold, which is going to be an Egyptian skimming unit. So that sounds like a Levant ship, but mass 4, and it just sounds like a floating fortress. Like you need to scroll for a while to see all the special rules that it has. It can send SRS tokens. It has a skiff dock rule, so it can boost little escorts around. It has a shield generator, of course. Armor decking, very interesting. We'll see what it does, but basically it's skimming, so you will get targeted by a lot of aerial attacks, and this will help. And it can also repair things around, and it has how many weapons? How many heavy gun batteries, like pointing like everywhere? Like it sounds like a very good deal for still, yes, it's true, for 400 points. But it sounds
The
like
the
a
the,
tough ship.
the short version of it is it's a skimming Muramask to
Yeah,
compare it to Commonwealth.
yeah.
It again, repair facilities, SRS capacity, none of it overwhelming in one direction. It's got 5 SRS. It's got 2 guns facing forward, with 2 small guns as well. It's one of those ships that's in this weird, interesting place between being support and heavy.
Yeah,
We'll see how it turns out.
yeah, I'm really excited to see how it will look like. It does sound like the Morbonsky, actually, and as you say, with all these lists. And it does a lot of different things, and it does nothing particularly good, but it sounds like a good centerpiece for your fleet. Then we go to the Anatolia, the first ship that ever was released for the Sultanate. Nothing much changed for it. I think it got a little point bump from where it was before, but it especially gained focused gunnery, and that sounds like a big deal. Especially, we'll say it once and for all here. The new focused gunnery still gives you +2 dices to a single gunnery attack, okay, and it gives this attack reroll blanks. So that sounds that sounds powerful. Do particle beamers get the gunnery keyword?
Yes. Uh, yes. Yes.
Okay,
I'm
so
almost 100% certain. D cannons do not,
okay, yeah,
but I
they don't.
believe particle beamers are sustained gunnery and nothing else.
So that sounds like a good boost for the Anatolia, because for 230 points, you start to have a quite efficient firepower. What do you think of this ship?
The Anatolia has always been in a weird place. It's a little bit. It never hit as hard as it needed to, which means focused gunnery is a good boost to it. Um, we'll get there, but the Tamir's gaining attached unit is also a good boost to it, because it has Gunrunner. So I
Indeed.
ideal circumstance you can get +5 dice from focus gunnery and Gunrunner combined.
Yeah, that does sound like a good ship indeed. So good power boost. It should be able to punch as hard as it needs to be now. Then we get to the Hurem Grand Cruiser, and this one was always like quite interesting. I think like during one of the first video we did about the Sultanate, we were saying like, yeah, if you don't have enough battle fleets, you can always build a Hurem. and that is a good ship. It has a lot of forward-facing weaponry, but it's 280 points, quite a steep price. It has command code, which is this free reroll once per turn, quite good. However, it suffers now from vulnerable stern, and for a ship with armor 7, and that costs so much, that could be annoying. What do you think of the Huram Grand Cruiser? Do you have one, and have you ever tried to play it? Because there is
I
another
do.
version.
I do. I use it regularly.
Okay.
The Hurem is quite good, but you need to know exactly what it is and exactly what it's not.
Hmm.
Um, this is not a tank. This is not anything that you want to put in to hold a point. This is a ship eraser. That's what it's for. One thing to note is that the Hurem is an older ship, and as such, it lacks one specific rule that every other Turkish ship has,
Which is Gun Runner?
or a Kalshite
Oh, indeed,
construction.
it doesn't. Okay.
Nope.
Ah, but wait,
This thing
it's
sinks
even in
like
the
a
fluff.
rock.
It's even in the fluff, actually.
Yep. This thing sinks like a rock. It
Yeah.
it has one more armor than any of the other equally cruisers,
Hmm.
but it doesn't have Orichalcite construction, and it only has Citadel 14. Sinking this thing is not hard for a 280 point ship. Command codes is command override, but every single turn. It's ridiculously good. It has 4 heavy batteries facing forwards. I use this primarily as my flagship in strategic reserves. It comes out from the side of the map and makes a flagship go away instantly.
Indeed, you can use command code on yourself, so this can really boost your own firepower.
Yep. Oh, that roll was just not good enough. Do it again.
Indeed. And if you go from strategic reserve, being so fragile is not as important because you can try to come from an angle where you will do what you need to do and you will not suffer that much from the opponent's firepower.
Your M needs to be very strategically used. It is a very, very, very powerful glass cannon.
Okay, in a faction of glass cannons, it's even more glassy, but even cannonier.
Yep.
All right, now we go to this very interesting looking ship, which is the Retage Portal ship. It's very expensive, 315, so it got a little price bump, even more. It has 2 twin Judgment Lances, so it can indeed go to 16. It has this Helioblast, 18 dices that we've talked about. It has, and that is very important, it has Fortunes of War, which is like such a good, like I would recommend at some, when you start to go at 1500 points games, don't go out without Fortunes of War. Uh, that sounds like a very bad idea. And this is one of the sources of Fortunes of War that you can have. It has Elite Crew, which is always good. Uh, this Corcaroli rule, which allow you to when you are at the red level of disorder to count as having just less disorder, let's say, and you can support better. Okay, um, especially now that the Carolos have attached unit. And the two rules that I will let you explain is Portal Focus and Portal Mastery. Because this, as the name suggests, is the ship that you want to have if you want to play with portals.
Would you like me to read those then?
Yeah, I will let
Okay.
you read them.
So, Portal Focus. This unit may, as a special operations action, place a 50 millimeter portal token within 20 inches of itself. During the round, when this unit has a portal token within 4 inches and makes an attack with the bomb or broadside qualities or an assault, this unit may measure the range of the attack or assault as though being made from any other portal token. This unit still requires line of sight to the initial target, but the weapon must replace their listed firework with a 360-degree fire arc if used with a portal. Escort tokens cannot provide a benefit to this attack. Remove the portal token once an action has been made from it. Any remaining portal tokens are removed from play at the start of the maintenance step. So, the most important thing to note out of Portal Focus is you can assault through portals
Yeah,
with this
that sounds
unit.
so cool. Like just from the theme of it, that's amazing. I saw that one of the named ship that we'll see later had it. I didn't notice that the Retage gained it. And yeah, that is amazing. Like just the image of it, it sounds amazing.
Yep. And remember, these are all crewed with robots. That's what the core Corali are.
Robots, are they? Yeah, let's say
Uh,
automatas.
I, I figure they're space robots. I think they've got souls, but no fleshy bits.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we will let the experts of Wild West Exodus correct us if they are robots or automatas, but indeed, I think they have souls. Okay, so
Yeah,
that
that's
is
the thing. I don't think that I think they're closer to Transformers than they are to the automatas because
yeah,
the automatas don't have souls. They don't have minds. They're programmed.
that's
Um,
a good comparison indeed.
and then second, we've got Portal Mastery.
Yes, we do.
This unit may, as a special operations action, place a second 50 millimeter portal token within 20 inches of itself. While a model from this unit is within 5 inches of a portal token, friendly units deploying from reserve may instead be deployed in base contact with any portal token in the play area. Each model in the reserve unit must be deployed in base contact with the same portal token. Remove the portal token once a reserve unit has been deployed using it. So this does two things. One, the ship places a second portal within 20 inches of
Very good.
itself. So we're getting two portals at 20 inches for this ship. And
And you
it
can
removes the
deploy.
mass limiter from coming in from reserves.
That sounds amazing.
So now your Hurem can come in through a portal. Now, for example, if you have a Ritage to start the game and a Ritage in reserves, the second Ritage can come out through a portal.
The question is, does it really need to come through a portal? Because you can assault through portals, and your weapons are very good at a long range. So do you really need the Retesh to come from a reserve? But yeah, for other ships, that sounds really, really powerful.
I mean, if you want to run two Ritages, there's the big thing that Portal Mastery does allow you to do in terms of reserves is because normal portals can only bring in mass 1 or 2. This gives you access to the Equally Hull cruiser units. So that includes the Mehmed, the Nemrut, as well as the Bursa and Bayezid, which you can take as units of 3. Those are all mass 3 models that can come in with this and benefit from it.
Yeah, 3 mass 3 ships coming out of a portal, that sounds hard to deal with. And we'll see them in a minute. But yeah, so overall, a very good unit, this Retage. And in the box, you get the Carolus destroyers that can come alongside it. And again, like I want to insist, it is a source of fortunes of war, which means if you have one, you want it to be on the table turn one if it is your only source of fortunes of war. Overall, it is expensive at 315 points, and but it is 14 hull points in total, and it just sounds like so much utility and firepower and things you can do with it. It just does so much for the Sultanate.
Also, the most dangerous weapon that you missed, it has 2 heavy torpedo salvos.
Yeah, because why not?
Heavy,
Yeah,
which the other Equally hulls do not. They have double normal torpedo salvos. So
yeah. So this thing is basically an Aquila on top of everything that it does. Sounds like a very good deal for 315 points, indeed. Uh, and then we go to the old king of the Sultanate lists that got quite a few nerfs. The Suleiman Fleet Carrier, which is still as beautiful a carrier as ever, but it got a little bit more expensive. It lost, if I'm not mistaken, a point of armor, which is a big deal, going from 8 to 7, and it gained a vulnerable stern. So it still has SRS capacity of 12, which is huge, flag barrage 7, so you don't either go pick him up easily with a couple of SRS tokens. It has inbuilt shield generator as well, Oracle set construction, of course, and it's still really, really good. But its stat line degrades faster, by the way. Less armor, vulnerable stern. Does it mean that you want to play it more like a carrier and hide it a little bit more rather than just putting it in the center of the table and tank for your other ships?
you never wanted to put this in the center of the table. You never wanted to take tank for your other ships. And there's one big reason for that. It has 4 rocket batteries. I consider it having no other weapons. It has 4 rocket batteries that don't face the same direction.
Mm,
There's no guns.
yeah, Well, I know we had a player that had this as its tankiest ship, and it was like, okay, it will just absorb firepower, and it was just throwing it in the center. By the end of the turn 3, the Suleiman was usually sunk, but by that time, the rest of the ships had done their deal. But now it's much less tanky, and uh, and yeah, that's the only way I've seen it played thus far, and I'm happy that it will be used more as a normal aircraft carrier, just being relatively hidden and sending SRS token all game long, and 12 SRS capacity is just insane. Like I think it's the highest SRS capacity of the entire game.
It is. Well, unless you count an iceberg.
Indeed, but yeah, indeed, but it is different types of token. But yeah, and this is like even more expensive than the Suleiman, indeed. But it's so like we're talking about the Ice Maiden for those who didn't get it, and it's such a specific ship that sometimes I even forget it exists.
Yep. The Suleiman is a great carrier. We have gone up 65 points in the last 2 OrBats. I still think it's totally worth it. It got weaker. I still think it's totally worth it. Flak Barrage 7 was a nice thing for it to gain. Gives it just a little bit of more defense. But yeah, I have no problems with the increases to cost to this. It used to not have any torpedoes. Now it has a single heavy torpedo salvo. It's gotten some changes in the last 2 OrBats. And like I said, it's gone up 65 points. This thing started at 275. They started off giving you 12 SRS for 275, which was
Yeah,
unacceptably good. It
yeah,
just was.
and,
Like I honestly considered running at 1500 points a fleet with 3 of these.
and that would be nearly unstoppable.
Yep. And that's not fun. That's not fun for anybody.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, for 275, like you were armor 8, a huge hull point value, shield generator. I mean, this thing was tanky for sure, and now it's just a very, very good carrier. Now we switch to the latest ship that was released for the Sultanate, the Top Capi Portal Strike carrier. And I'm not sure what I think of it. It does have this special rule SRS Portal Strike. If we can zoom, no, we don't see it here. It's basically two Constantinoples together, which are the basic carriers, with a portal generator on it. And shield, it has SRS capacity of 8, which is respectable for 245 points, and it can make SRS portal strikes through a generator. But then, and I will let you answer this, like it's much more fragile than the Suleiman, armor 6, it level 12. It's like, eh. It also have vulnerable stern, and the Suleiman is just so much tankier with more SRS capacity. And yes, the Suleiman does not have SRS portal strike, but do you really need it when you can send your SRS token 40 inches?
2 points to make about SRS Portal Strike. 1, SRS Portal Strike does not use the portals. So unlike using guns or deploying through portals, it doesn't reduce your capacity in the future. 2, it has a portal generator, and it has SRS Portal Strike, which places a portal. This thing places 2 portals by itself.
Okay, so it can place for other units.
Yes. This is actually a great ship if you are running a portal weapon heavy fleet as the rear portal generator. So this is a great ship to place the portals to fire through.
Okay, indeed, I did not consider it like this, and this is why it's so good to have an expert Sultanate player. But yeah, indeed, 2 portals for this price. You might not want to use them yourself, but you will help your buddies to shoot better through this. Indeed. And okay, I was actually considering building only the Nemrut out of this, the artillery version, but now I'm thinking, oh, maybe I do want the Top Capi indeed.
Yeah, 8 SRS for 245 is not bad in the
No,
first
no.
place. And like again, we look at the weakness and go, "Oh, it's armor 6, hull 5, armor 6, hull 6." And it's like, "Yes, but it's also Orkalshite construction. It's also a carrier, so it really doesn't have to get anywhere where it can be shot at."
Hmm.
And just the ability to generate your rear portals for others makes this a great support piece. if instead of running the Suleiman and running, a big heavy fleet, you want to run lighter and you want to focus on using more portals. The other thing is, since the Suleiman has gone up in price so much and the Ratage is as expensive as it is, this makes a great second flagship with the Ratage, just because of price issues. Just because running a Suleiman and a Ratage in a single fleet is a lot of
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, if you play at 2,000 points, you may allow this, but at 1,500, it starts to be a lot, indeed. Okay, thank you for this. We are,
Especially since you probably also want a reserve fleet with that.
of course, of course you will want. Okay, we are arriving at the end of the flagships, and we're especially arriving to the named ships, and there are two named variants now of the Anatolia. There is the Dogan and the okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce those. Valide Kosem. And those two ships look very, very interesting. I offer we start with the Valide Kosem, which is the easiest one to explain. It is basically a normal Anatolia for 35 points more. From what I see, it gains Sharpshooter, which is huge, -2 to the enemy citadel when you shoot with gunnery attack, which combos very well with focused gunnery, and you can put Temir frigates. And it also has Fortunes of War, which is so good. Like for me, I would say like if I want to bring an Anatolia, is there any moment you would want a normal Anatolia and not find somewhere in your list 35 points more to take this Kosem, except if you already have Fortunes of War somewhere in your list?
Being forced to take guns instead of particle beamers is rough.
That would be too strong otherwise.
Well, no, but you're asking
Okay,
about
yeah, but yeah, okay.
when I
If
would
you
make
want
the different
particle, yeah.
choice. I'll take a generic so I can take particle beamers on it.
Mm, okay, fair
Like
point.
it's good. It's definitely good. Not being able to take particle beamers on it hurts, and definitely makes it a significant choice, which is always good. Everything should be choices. Nothing should be automatic.
Indeed,
If
indeed.
if anything's so good that it needs to be included in every link in every list, Suleiman, it needs to get nerfed and nerfed hard.
Indeed. Okay, so you make a very good point, the generic with particle beamers, but if you want heavy gun batteries on your Anatolia, maybe take this Kosem.
Yep.
And then if you have an Anatolia, I would suggest taking the much cooler version that is the Dogan. I say cooler because I just, first of all, read the fluff. It sounds really cool, like it, but regardless of the fluff, it is basically an Anatolia with a portal generator and portal focus, and still focus gunnery. It does have only one heavy gun battery to the front because it needs to have some space for the portal generator. But gaining portal focus does mean that this ship can do assaults through through the portals, and that just sounds so good. And from what they say, it's a crew of fighting women only, and it's made to help like Princess Sherazade mostly. And first of all, that is a cool ship to create for the backstory of the game. And what do you think, regardless of this, on how, first of all, how cool this ship is, and is it actually efficient and an efficient choice for 10 points less than the Valid Kosem and for 25 points more than the regular Anatolia?
So with portal focus, this drops two portals, one at 5, one at 20, meaning it can self-support its own assaults.
Hmm.
Um, it has a point increased fray, which is nice. I think it needs more than that, and I think it needs elite crew,
Yeah.
but I do like it. If you're taking it, you should take the two Tamirs just for the supporting fray.
Hmm. Yeah. So
It's
good ship.
interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, but at the minimum, generating two portals is nice.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, it is. And okay, we've seen all the flagships now. The video has already been going on for quite a while, so I offer we go quickly on the ships. We will go one after the other. I will say like what the ship is and what I think it does, like broadly from an external point of view, and you will say if it's right and how you actually played yourself.
Yep.
Let's.
Okay. I'm going to note two
Yep.
quick things
Of course.
right away,
Mhm.
so that I don't have to note them again when we get there.
Mhm.
One, basically everything can take ferric skiffs, which means, two, if you have an attached unit, both the partner unit and the joining unit can take ferric skiffs, which doesn't benefit you on the defense, but does benefit you on the offensive side.
Oh, very good point. I didn't think of this combining all of those together. Indeed, very good point.
And the second point in there is that all of the things that are attached units in the Sultanate don't say flagship and don't say Turkish. They say Sultanate. So they can join anything except order, because there's no way to take order flagships or order ships with other Sultanate ships in the same battle fleet. And you have to be in the same battle fleet to be a partner.
Indeed, and you still need to be of the same position trait. You cannot
Position.
attach to
Yes.
aerial units or when you're surface and this kind of thing.
But
Okay.
just as an example, in the future,
Mhm.
the Aiden is able to join Egyptian ships or Greek ships without issue.
Mhm. And which is good because some of the Egyptian ships have issues with limited munitions, for example, and the Aiden is very good at giving them munition. So let's start, for example, with the Aiden, which is a ship that I really like for 65 points. First of all, it can be attached, which is always a good thing to boost, especially if you do what you said with the escort tokens. But even then, it's a cheap activation at 65. It has logistical support, so you get +1 card. And having at least one logistical support in your fleet is really good, as I found out. And it has supply depot, which is still removing a level of disorder. We'll say it once for this one, still the same. And now the restoring weapons, it's not the same as that you have to activate next to reload your weapons. It means that any friendly unit that even moves within 7 inches, you don't have to stop there, regains any weapons that were lost because you rolled a blank on limited quality action dice. So that sounds like a very, very good ship for 65 points, and I would say not an auto include, but for 65 points you get so much value, especially like for example logistical support, and you get torpedo salvo, a rocket. Like, what do you think of it?
I like the Aiden. I think it's a good ship. It is the required ship in the support battle fleet. Um, so you basically have to take these with your Suleiman.
Hmm. But you
Uh,
don't mind.
no, it logistical support at 65 points is always valuable.
Indeed. Then we go to the cheapest of the Ikali cruiser, the Bayezid, which is for 165 points. You do get 2 heavy gun batteries and 2 torpedo salvos. And this guy can squadron up, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you can have up to 3 of those. It has an inbuilt shield generator. It does have vulnerable stern, like most of the Ikili hulls. And it has Minesweeper as well. Sounds like a good frontline unit, or coming out from reserve, as you said.
Yep, and just understand this gets to take another generator with it as well. So, for example, if you want a really tough portal ship, this is an option. I'm
This is
not
how you
sure I'm
would
willing to
play.
pay.
Yeah, 160.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm willing to pay 160 for these guys for a couple of reasons. Then one of which we'll get to in 2 entries, I think.
Yeah, because there is better soon. Then there is these support platforms. I always keep them very fast because I actually don't like them and I've never played with or against them. What do you think of platforms? Have you ever played with them on the table?
So I'm just going to point out 2 things. One, uh, attached unit Sultanate means that
You can attach to
um,
this.
you can attach a ship to a platform, which is fun. And 2, understand that the war platform can take a portal generator. Or
Oh,
sorry, not a portal generator. Yes, it can take a portal generator, which is potentially useful to put portals forward. It could also instead take a mirage generator,
can it? Can it?
which means it can move.
Okay, this makes me want to play platforms actually. If you can have this platform teleporting around, that sounds so fun. Is it legal? Can you move with a Mirage generator on the platform?
It doesn't move.
Yeah,
It is removed from play and
yeah,
placed.
yeah. This
It
unit,
does not
yeah.
move.
Immobile said draft of 0 may not move. Yeah, no, okay. Apparently it's legal. That sounds like a very good trick to try once on an opponent.
Definitely try once.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to be worth it after that.
yeah. Then, okay, this reason why you don't want the Bayezid, it could be the Borsa for 15 points increase. You cannot squadron up, that is sad, but you do get Flag Barrage 5.
You can, in fact, squadron up.
Can you? I miss it.
It's on the
Oh,
sidebar in this
it's
one.
another place. Okay, I was looking at the same place. Indeed, you can as well.
So remember how we talked about removing D cannon battery units with SRS?
Yeah.
Three Bursas with D cannon batteries and magnetic generators as their second.
Okay. Okay, that sounds naughty at this point. Oh my god, how you deal with that? Like I don't see how you counter that actually.
You attack them with ships, but
Yeah, but
SRS are never removing them. Never.
yeah, yeah, you
Three magnetic generators and three Flak Barrage 5s. You're not pulling them out. You just can't do it.
yeah, you need to turn around the island and try to find a way to get them in line of sight. Okay, that sounds
Yep.
like a very good combo. Then we arrive to the Carolus destroyer with the Judgment Lance. We've talked about it already. It does have armored decking that we've talked about. We've talked about basically everything. It did gain apparently like this new aurical site construction, which means that even if their citadel is breached, they will just take critical damage and not die outright. And it does gain now the attached unit order, which would be amazing, but now it has a minimum size of 2. And it was 4 before, I think. These
It
are
was
expensive.
four. It was 4 and unalterable before.
Mhm.
So
Now you can have 3 if you want, for example, for some reason.
yep.
And yeah, still a
So
good chips.
yeah, attached unit is interesting. Understand attached unit version of this is not going to be able to combine its judgment lances with twin judgment lances, but it does benefit from the Core Carolina and Elite crew rules
Mhm.
for the purpose of assaults. So attaching 2 of these to your Ritage for portal assaults is significantly valuable.
Indeed, like can make indeed a portal assault, and the supporting Carolus don't have this rule that allows them to make assault from the portals, but they can support the assault of the Heritage, which does have the rule, and so you can make one big boarding action. And that sounds just like so cool. I want to try this on the table once. Then we go to the Constantinople at 127 points, which is the basic carrier, which is relatively fragile in its stat line, 3 and 4. But again, it's a carrier, so you don't want to send it at the battle. It has vulnerable stern, doesn't help. We used to say that it's you would never see it on the table because the Suleiman was so much better. But now that the Suleiman got a little bit of a nerf and the Topkapi is still expensive, do you think a single Constantinople could be a good call?
Yeah, so the Constantinople, it's still in a weird place because the Suleiman is so good and the top copy is decent too. But there's a lot of maritime patrol in the Sultanate.
Mhm.
I'm not going to take 4 SRS to shoot at you with SRS, but I will take them for maritime patrol. And it has a role in a fleet like that.
Indeed. Indeed, sometimes you look at only the SRS as an offensive capacity and you're like, okay, but there is actually, for example, mine clearance or recon flight or triggering spotter or the kind of thing. And this is something you need to keep in mind. For example, what we said
Yep.
in the latest video about the East India Trade Company, which play a lot with victory cards, having a single aircraft carrier for recon flight can really help you. And
Recon flight is a big deal,
mhm,
and spotter is a big deal, and that's one of the reasons why you would want to take a minimum number of SRSs to trigger those. And like I said, maritime patrol shows up in the head of the Sultanate OrBat because it's very common, as we're about to see. It's basically on every one of their battle cruisers.
indeed, we will see. We go to the Iskandar, which is the basic, most standard version of the cruiser. It did gain vulnerable stern, which is a bit sad, but it does have 2 frontal heavy gun battery. And yeah, for 93 points, like a torpedo salvo, 2 heavy gun batteries facing forward. It is armor 6, Citadel 10, but again, aurical side construction. It does sound like you get a lot of value for 93 points, even though it has only 3 hull points when crippled.
This is a 107 point cruiser, and it's wonderful.
Because you never take it with its default equipment.
It requires 2 particle beamers, and it's a great forward fighting cruiser. Iskander is its bread and butter, and it's great bread and butter.
Okay, so you heard it. Take it with the particle beamers because it boosts it so much. We have the Izmir monitor, which is quite interesting. You look at it, you're like, it's a weaker Iskandar. It has similar stat line, vulnerable stun. It's much cheaper at 77 points, but what you can notice is that it has heavy broadsides. So how would you play the Izmir?
So there's a couple of ways to play the Izmir. It's the point of monitors is actually to be defensive ships, which you can do. You can run this in the back. You can run this in the back with magnetic generators and rely on torpedo salvos, and then wait to see if the opponent gets closer. Because then you're only running a 67-point ship. The other thing you can do with this ship is you can run it in through portals. This guy enters through portals. It's got 3 heavy broadsides that it can combine. And it's lower speed than, for example, the Pasha or Iskandar is negated by the fact that you're bringing in through a portal. It's fun. It's interesting. It's the cheapest way to get heavy broadsides, and for portal reserves, that is a big deal.
Yeah, if you can get 3 of those, like through a portal between 2 enemy ships, so you can maximize your heavy broadside, they are already paid for themselves in this single activation.
Yep, and if I'm putting them in reserve, I'm probably dropping their points by putting a generator of some kind on them.
For example, for what is the one that boosts your fray? Would you board with
It
them at
would
the same time?
either be Fury or Mirage in most cases.
All right. Mirage has maybe a little bit less value on them because they're already count as being obscured against gunnery because they're mess. I know they're mess twos. Oh, stupid name. No, so yeah, sounds good. Mirage sounds good. Then we go to the Jebel battle platform. Again, we will go fast. They have a lot of rules. They're immobile, but they can. No, those cannot take a generator, so we're not there yet for the fun. Here we are. Comms war platform.
So I will just point out with the
Yep.
Jebel battle, that with D cannon batteries
Yeah.
and 360-degree fire arcs, you can load this thing up with. Oh no, they do not let you take D cannon batteries on. I wonder if that's a misprint. I'll need to ask that question because it does not let you take D cannons in the additional slots. Because a battle platform can take 5 weapons, but apparently only one of those can be a D cannon. So you can't
Yeah.
load it up with 15 D cannon batteries and then put it behind an island.
That would have been strong. It would have really invited the SRS tokens to come to clean it. But yeah, that could have been fun indeed. But no, no point to doing this. But yeah, the war platform can take the Mirage, the Portal. So yeah, sounds like you can have your teleporting war platform, which sounds like something you should try at least once if you have one. Okay, we are going next on the Konya maintenance ship. For a while, I thought it was a typo, maintenance written like this, but apparently it is a technical term, maintenance written like this. It is also an attached unit, so it's in competition in this sense with the Aydin, but this one is 75 points, so 10 points more. It has advanced repair facilities too, so it will launch 4 dices and it can repair ships around. Good. And it has skiff docks, which used to be that you gain kind of like a feel no pain, let's say, on your skiffs, but now it means that your skiffs can gain +2 to their attack action dice pool at point blank rather than +1. And it's you still have this feel no pain type of thing. But it does sound like it could be a key part of this massing the skiffs for different attached units tactic that you were talking about, because the Konya itself can take 3 skiffs.
Yes, the Konya itself is an attached unit and can take 3 skiffs. So, for an example, if you want to be ridiculous, you can take 3 Izmir monitors with 3 skiffs and a Konya with 3 skiffs and bring them all in through a portal to throw 3 heavy broadsides and a standard broadside plus 12 dice.
That sounds ridiculous. That sounds fun. And that sounds like you would be vulnerable to blast right after. And it also sounds like it will look really cool on the table. That sounds like, okay, that's probably what I'm going to do with my first alternate list. It sounds too good. This little combo that you've been talking about.
Yeah, Konya is interesting and valuable for Sultanate for skiff dock and advanced repair facilities.
Mhm.
Again, having advanced repair facilities is always good, and because of Orichalcite construction and their generally low hull, any repairs you get are probably better than other factions getting repairs.
And we arrive indeed with a new Order ship, a Mass 2 ship for the Order. Oh, that's very exciting. I'm actually discovering it right now. I should have read the OrBat better. What does it get? It has a twin judgment lance, all right, and you immediately look at how many squad you can. No, you can only have 2 ships, so no 24 dices, twin judgment lances. Sad, but it does sound like a good mass 2 ships for 155 points. That is pricey. It has portal focus, elite crew, everything. What can you tell us on this ship, except that it has an amazing name?
Uh, this is half a Ratage. Um,
Indeed.
it's gonna function like half a Ratage. Note that the squadron cost is 20 points cheaper
Hmm.
because portal focus is a unit-based ability.
Ah, okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's not a mistake. I'm pretty sure that's intentional.
Hmm.
That the first model is 155 points and the second model is 135
Yeah,
because they're not getting more
sounds like the
portal
price of
focus.
this portal focus, indeed.
We'll have to see how it is, but looks interesting for sure. And it gives the order at least something else to take because the order battle fleet currently has 2 units it can take, and this would be the third
Hmm.
that it'll get. So
Yeah, sounds that at some point there might be a larger like order battle fleet with Retage, with maybe some aerial units and stuff. And it sounds like playing only like a full order fleet at lower points could be a very fun way to play the game. And then we go to the Mehmed Grand Monitor for 250 points. This is one thing that we will notice first is that you can only have one per battle fleet, so no spamming those, but it sounds logical. Wasn't it like one per fleet, like period in at some point? I'm not sure. And it is basically this Huram that we've talked about before, but this one is not a flagship. It does get Fortunes of War, which is a big deal. It has an inbuilt shield and magnetic generator that you can never replace, and it can reduce the disorder of any unit within 10 inches at the start of their activation. For 250 points, what do you think of the Mehmed?
for 250 points, Fortunes of War, and 4 forward-facing guns, this thing is great. Um, it is not a flagship, so it doesn't have heavy firepower
Mhm.
like the Hurem does, but it does have Orichalcite construction. Um, Displacing this thing isn't easy, and it for a long time was the Sultanate's only source of Fortunes of War. It's still worth it to take.
Yeah, that does sound like a ship that will just pull value. It's relatively tanky, I would say, with between the shield and the magnetic and Oracle side. Like, it's not a tank, but it is not as fragile as the Hurem, for example. But Fortunes of War, it's important. Having this way to reduce disorder is great, and Elite Crew as well. Like, I mean, it does sound like it will do a lot. Like, it has 2 forward-facing torpedo salvos. Like, for 250, yeah, I would agree. It sounds good. The problem with the Solnet is there are so many good ships, you don't know which one to build. Like, they're all on the same sprues, and it's like, what should I do? Then we go to the Mirema bombardment cruiser, which still has the Orichalcite flechette launcher. We've seen how good this is. This has a portal generator as well, so the unit can support its own bombardment, and it gained Flag Barrage 5, which for a bombardment cruiser is huge. So big boost for the Mirema. Does it mean that we will, now that there is a lot more ways to play with portals, we will start to see them on the table?
Yeah, I think Flak Barrage and Portal Generator both increase the Mirama's stock a lot. Again, because there's the one per battle fleet ship we're going to be coming up to soon. It was hard to justify this before. I think it's a lot easier now, especially with Portal Generator improving as much as it has.
Yeah, indeed. Remember the first what to build video we did about the Suleiman battle fleet, and we said there that don't build the Mirima yet because they might be great later, but it was not their time back then. Now we can say do build Mirimas. They are great ships to play with now. And then we have the Morea Mine Layer for 70 points. It has an inbuilt Mirage Generator and Minesweeper and Mine Layer. That could be fine. Like, I mean, mines are good. Mine Layer is fine. But for 70 points, like, wouldn't you want instead to have an Aydin or a Konya instead? This is why I think the Moria, I have difficulties justifying it in my lists. Mine Layer is fine. Mirage Generator is fine as well, I guess. But this is not a battleship. And once it has put his mine, it doesn't have much utility. What would you say about the Moria?
So I mean, being upsetting with torpedoes is fine. It's not a bad playstyle. Understand. Well, no, you wouldn't want to do that, and there's reasons. But this is really interesting. The thing to say about this is, I've looked at all the Orbats. I've looked at Mine Layer a lot. I believe the Moria is the most efficient way to get mines into a fleet. There are other factions that have mine layers that are about this price.
Mhm.
They are not. They do not have the squadron rule,
Indeed. Indeed,
so
you,
it takes up an entire slot.
yeah, that is true. There are cheaper ways to have a mine, but then it takes a slot each time, indeed, because usually it's auxiliary mine layer.
Exactly.
Indeed, so if you want to play a lot with mines, it could be a good ship, but then again, like, mine is such a specific playstyle. I've seen it being played as a little boost. The most I've had in the list was 5 mines to put at the beginning of the list, which really allowed me to like block an entire like passage between two islands. But it's a lot of investment for something that I'm like, will it really be that useful for the price? I'm like, never sure.
I will point out that if you are bringing portals and you put this in a reserve battle fleet, the mines still come out right away. They're not tied to its deployment in any way. So you can lay the mines and then have these guys appear right in your opponent's mists at the end of turn 2,
Mhm.
to start throwing broadsides and torpedoes.
That is true as well. Good way to play them if you really want to have more years. They are not unusable, just like you need to think like how to use them. Then we have the Nemrut Supremacy Cruiser, which was thus far what I thought I would do with my Topkapi box. This one has a lot of weapons. It gained heavy broadside from before, and it still has a. It's basically two Mirimas linked like together as a with a Ikili hull. It has 2 heavy rocket batteries plus 2 smaller rocket batteries, all pointing like everything points forward. 2 torpedo salvos. Has a portal generator, of course, 1 per battle fleet, which is okay. An internal chiller generator, okay, and it especially has something called the Sultan's Hammer, which no, I thought it did more than that. It only gives +2 dices to your rocket barrage. Still good to take. Uh, +2 dices is not that crazy because you will already send so many rockets between all of those. That sounds like a
Well,
solid ship. What do you think?
so the thing with Sultan's Hammer, that I'll note, I like the Nemrut. I've used it a lot. The thing with Sultan's Hammer to note is that unlike something like Focus Gunnery, it gives the bonus to all the attacks. So I have always found the best way to use the Nemrut's rockets
Mhm.
is to pair a heavy and a normal into 2 groups, but aim them at the same unit, like
Okay,
a
indeed.
frigate unit. And
Very
so that
well.
gives you the bonus 2 dice twice over,
Mhm.
and you can often sink 2 frigates with that.
Indeed, that does sound like the best way to use it. I didn't notice it. Well, very good that to have an experienced player, but indeed you receive +2 all action dices with this. Okay. Yeah. And I guess you've calculated trying to put a single heavy rocket batteries each time, and then linking the 2 smaller ones that might not be as efficient. You cannot fish for the Citadel with that.
Yep. And again, remember you can attach Aiden or Konya to this, and they both have a single rocket battery as well.
Ah,
So they would gain the benefit as well. So,
okay. Good trick. A Nemrut plus an Aydin, for example, might not be the worst thing.
or if you want to add a heavy rocket battery to it, the
Yeah.
Pasha.
Well, Good thing we're just arriving here. The Pasha, indeed, thanks for the transition. It does have attached unit Sultanate, which it just gained. It is basically an Izmir with a gun battery to the rear. Well, the gun battery to the rear is not the most important part. It does have Vanguard. So if you only play Pashas as Pashas, they will have Vanguards. And indeed, you can attach it to any Sultanate unit. So not only flagships, you can just plug in a Pasha to any unit that you want. Even Temir frigates if you want. It does have a gun runner itself, the Pasha. What do
You
you think
can't
of this?
attach it to. You cannot attach it to Samir frigates.
Oh,
Uh, the partner unit cannot have any other joining units or the attached unit rule. So nothing that can attach can be
ah,
attached to.
they cannot attach to each other. Okay, okay, indeed. This
Uh,
I never noticed, and the case never happened. But indeed, you cannot attach a unit to a unit that can be attached. Okay, good to note.
yep.
So
So
how would you
nothing can
play
join
this?
the Pasha
Hmm.
either. So you
Yeah.
can't take an Aiden or a Konya or Tamir's with Pasha. It's that restriction exists.
Okay.
So now there are a couple ways to use the Pasha. So one, um, the way I've been using Pashas since the beginning of the game is I take off their guns and give them portal generators. They become a fast portal generating unit with Vanguard, which means the first turn they're up the board plus their 8 inches with 3 portal generators having full range. At 64 points a pop, it's 1,000% worth it if you're running a portal heavy strategy with portal weapons for them to be the ones to place portals forward.
Yeah.
Um, it also gives me the opportunity to race them forward, put them behind islands, try and hide them as best I can. And every time my opponent shoots at them, I basically laugh internally because, yeah, you're going to get rid of my portal generating units sometime in turn 2. By turn 3, I'm going to be able to shoot at you with all of my bomb weapons at point blank range anyway. So have fun taking out a unit that I do not care is gone by turn 3.
Yeah. Especially if you do this, it's even cheaper than an Aiden, for example. So then you're like, yeah, you can really sacrifice it without without sadness.
Yep. It gaining attached unit. It's the only cruiser weight thing that has attached units. So taking it for, let's say, an additional gun on a um any of the Anatolias is always good.
Yep.
So yeah, it's got a lot of versatility as an attached unit.
We arrive next with the Sadrazam heavy cruiser, which is the heavier version of the Iskandar. And yeah, this sounds like a good, tough cruiser with heavy gun batteries, heavy broadside, of course, 115 points, which is not that much. It is quite fragile for a heavy cruiser, with only 7 hulls in total. What would you say of this?
Is the Izmir just not expensive enough for you, and you'd like to bring gun batteries as well? Well, let me introduce you to the Sazradam. Bring it in through portals, heavy broadside everyone to death.
But wouldn't you want heavy broadsides on the Izmir instead?
Again, this is if you want the gun batteries too,
Hmm.
this has the gun batteries too. And so you get to bring this in through a portal, um, put the heavy broadsides on close units, put the heavy gun batteries on closing range units, or cross the T with them and combine all those things into one stupid attack.
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do indeed. Yeah.
Like I said, is the Izmir just not enough points um for your heavy broadsides? Do you feel the need to spend more points for your heavy broadsides? Bring the Sazradam. It's not actually a bad idea. That's not actually really a joke saying the Sazradam's not worth it. Those heavy gun batteries are going to do some work.
That is true. While you get closer for the heavy broadsides, you can shoot with your heavy gun batteries at closing, and yeah, that sounds good. Plus, it has a good gun battery to the rear, which you can also combine because the gun batteries got a little bit better, indeed. Then we go to the first teaser for the Greeks, the Spartan Dive Cruiser. It sounds like a very standard cruiser stat line. It does have auricalcite construction, which is good for Citadel 12 cruiser, and it has um, a wave lurker, which allows it to trade some offensive power to in exchange again basically being obscured and counting as being submerged. Uh, We're
Yep. So
yeah.
remember how I said nothing has equally hull and gunrunner combined?
Well, sounds like it's gonna be the Greek thing.
This has hammer sweep and gunrunner combined,
Yeah,
both of which provide a speed boost.
so you can be very fast with this.
Yes. It does not have power slide, which is potentially a problem, but if you really want to ram people with this, just give it a Mirage generator instead.
Indeed, because it has a rear heavy gun battery, so you can remove it and just give him a Mirage. Sounds good.
Yep.
We will talk more
And
about
it
the
will
Greeks.
be
Yeah,
stupid fast.
yeah. We'll talk more about the Greeks, of course, once they will be. We will get closer to their release. And now we arrive to a unit that I think is close to your heart, the Temir frigates. So it can go from 2 to 8 ships at 33 points per model. It has a light broadside, but it has a gun battery and those micro torpedo salvos, and you can always attach 2 Temirs to any Sultanate unit. We've talked about it a lot. Do you have something more to say about these very good Temirs, except that they will die as soon as they get 10 hits?
Yeah, they're squishy. But being frigates means your opponent has to shoot at them individually, and they hurt. They hurt a lot. They have Gunrunner. Gunrunner with 8 dice is a big deal.
Yeah,
They can take etheric lances. They become 39-point models when they do. That's worth it.
yeah, we did.
These guys are nice. These guys hit very, very hard, and are nice to bring in from reserves. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that's basically it.
That's already quite good. Like we did talk quite a bit about the Temia, but we've seen that they are an important part of the Sultanate strategy. They are squishy, but they are very much a glass cannon, and they can do a lot of damage.
And just to remind people of the generic rules for Sultanate plus the stat line.
Mhm.
13 speed, 10 turn, agile, gun runner, power slide.
This thing can go wherever it wants.
Yes.
All right. We finished the surface units, which are basically all the units that are released right now. This video has been going on for quite a while, and so I offer that we stop there for the detailed analysis of everything. We can just say a few words in general for the Egyptian ships that are going to be skimming. You know the OrBat. What is the general feeling of the Egyptian faction that you can guess from the OrBat? Like, how are they going to be? Are they going to be tougher than the Turkish, or even more of a glass cannon? What's going to be their thing, if you can think?
They seem even more specialized. And so if you just want to stop there for 1 second, go
Yep.
back up. This is the Manjet. This is the one that can be the flagship as a unit.
Hmm.
So that was one thing to point out.
Indeed.
They've all got weird weapon profiles. They're a little hard to understand and read.
Yeah, indeed.
They they seem expensive.
Okay.
I do not know how they're going to play. I don't know how they're going to play until I get them on the table. Um, some of them are very, very interesting. The one below the Manjet, the Mesquite, has heavy torpedo salvos, which is who boy.
Yeah.
Um, that they'll be interesting with etheric lances and heavy torpedo salvos as a unit of 3.
Hmm.
Um, they're interesting. I'm worried that they're going to be squishy. They don't have auric calcite construction,
Indeed,
uh,
they don't.
and they have 12 Citadel, which means they're going to blow up real good. Um, so yeah, these guys are definitely interesting. I'm definitely curious to see how they play out. It's hard to justify their points and their weapon spreads right now, but I have to see how they feel and move on the table. I'm guessing it's going to be like how I've played the Levant cruisers before, which is
Hmm.
keep them low, hide them behind stuff, move them up, and then when you get into ideal range, you pop out from behind an island and shoot someone dead.
Yeah, that sounds like, well, there are skimmers as well, so that does sound like the gameplay that you want to go with skimming units. And of course, we'll go more in details when they will be released. And yeah, that sounds like cool little ships, and we're looking forward to having them. And then to go quickly over the aerial units, they are mostly Turkish aerial units and one order unit. Let's point out that those are the units that you will take with the Crimson League mercenaries, and those are aerial units, so they fly much higher than the skimming Egyptians. What can you tell us first about these Turkish aerial units, which again can gain luminiferous defenses, so they can have 3 dices for defense against gunnery, and they can also gain an internal entropic generator. And then you will talk about this giant Vitruvian Colossus.
The aerial units I have not done significant analysis on. Again, looking them over, there are interesting places in terms of their points, cost, and weapons. But we're gonna have to see how they come out. I have trouble reading the stat lines of most air units. They always seem a little squishier than I want them to be, and being part of the Sultanate, which is already squishy, concern.
Yeah, we will see how they play once they arrive. And finally, last unit we'll analyze here is this. Well, analyze. Let's just skip a little bit about what this guy is gonna do. It's a Vitruvian Colossus, but it's a Mass 2 and Aerial, so it's smaller than, for example, the Hochmeister, or
Yeah,
for
I will. I can tell you right now what this does, and I can make this very, very short. This is the Hawkmeister in both points and stat line, except it flies and it's only a mass 2.
Okay, that's very
It
clear indeed. It's
it's
yeah.
it's very interesting that it is basically as powerful, as many points, everything as another ship, and it's an entire mass unit smaller. And really, I think the reason for it is because it is an order model. It is like the highest end technology in this world. Them and the Enlightened. So
Indeed.
it's very interesting.
Okay, so we are really looking forward to seeing this unit actually coming on the table. And then something to point out, at the end of the OrBat, there is now the identification guide. And yeah, you can have a little bit of look at what the units actually look like. There might be a rework on how the OrBat is actually organized later, but for now it's all the way at the end. And yeah, as we can see, these units look really good. This has been about a little bit less than 2 hours and a half review. So we are arriving at the end. Thank you very much, first of all, VonKobra, for coming here and talking about us with this faction that you know so well. Do you have words of conclusion about the Sultanate? First, what would you tell to the opponents of the Sultanate, like how to counter them? And then, if you had to sell the faction to a new player and convince them to play the Sultanate, what would be your words? First, little tips on the opponents of the Sultanate, how they can handle these ships that sound like very hard to catch.
One, or Calshite construction is in play. You should be targeting their citadel, not double their citadel. Um, Catastrophic explosions are great; they're efficient. Your support values are inefficient, and if you're trying at that double citadel, you are wasting shots. Um, Two, go after the hard hitters. You might think that stopping your opponent from getting portals out is going to help you. It's not. Um, One, they have the ability to put out a lot more portals now than they used to. You can't take their portals off the table. If they've got one unit with a functional generator, they can still drop one within 5, which for reserves is all they need. Go after the things that are going to be using the portal generators, try and close range with them, and put the hurt on. If more of my opponents just ignored my Pasha's existence, they would do better against me. But I've had several opponents be entirely focused on sinking that unit so I can't put the portals out. And they successfully do so by the end of turn 2 or the beginning of turn 3. And then I just drive the Nemrut into point blank and shoot at them without the portal. So
Yeah,
it's a waste of time to go after portal ships, especially ones that are just dedicated to putting out the portals and nothing else.
indeed. That sounds like a good tips. Thank you. And if you had to convince a new player to play Sultanate, like what would you say? Like, for which type of player should the Sultanate talk to? Like, who should play Sultanate? What do you think?
Do you want complete control of positioning on the battlefield? Because that's what you get with the Sultanate. You win by being in your opponent's worst ranges. And now I'm going to talk about the particle beamers because this is the important thing. Particle beamers are not weapons that are better at point blank range. They are technically by 1 die apiece. That's not the important thing. Particle beamers have flat damage over their entire range. You just need to ignore that 7-5 and consider it another 6-4 because you win when you are in your opponent's bad shooting zones, not by being in your best shooting zones. So this is different from other factions. The Enlightened love being point blank. So do the Imperium. The Commonwealth want to be on the other side of the table for as long as they can be. You need to make them uncomfortable. You win by being where your opponent wants you to not be, and you're fast enough to get there.
Mm.
If
Uh,
you want to form a battle line, if you want to brawl, don't play Sultanate. If you want to stab your opponent from the side, play Sultanate.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, VonKobra, for this analysis. It was very interesting. I learned a lot on how to play the Sultanate and what the little tricks actually are. This was very good. I think all our viewers will thank you as well for sharing this wisdom. We hope that you enjoyed this video, dear viewer. If you did, remember to give us a little thumbs up and tell us in the comments if you like this new version of the OrBat review where we have a guest. I think it's quite interesting to have someone that knows as good a faction as VonKobra knows the Sultanate to come to talk to us about it, because I would have made mistake if I were alone. And plus, I think it's nicer to have a discussion like this. Let us know in the comment what you think. Again, thank you very much, VonKobra, for being there. And we will see you all for the next video. We will have some Sultanate ships being on our tables and our battle reports soon. Until the next video, everyone, take care of yourselves and remember to keep spreading the love all around you. Bye.